Thanks very much for talking. Your government is negotiating in good faith with Lendlease for the resiting of that hotel over the water back onto dry land. Are you now indicating that you and the Minister for Planning want those negotiations to explore accommodating James Packer's plan to site a casino hotel resort on land known as Barangaroo Central?
Well, that would be a matter for Lendlease. Lendlease won a competitive tender to develop Barangaroo South. That tender success included the hotel on the harbour, a hotel that I opposed at the time. And what I indicated after the design review came back was that we would negotiate with Lendlease about moving that hotel onto solid land. But if anyone else wanted to operate that hotel or engage in that hotel, that would be a matter between them and Lendlease.
Sure, but the siting of the hotel is at issue. This is a threshold question for you, Mr Premier, because you've got the lever, the planning power with the Minister for Planning. Threshold question, are you prepared to alienate, sell or lease this public land at Barangaroo Central for a casino hotel to try to win more of the high roller market?
Well, look, there's a couple of questions there, Quentin. Firstly, in relation to Lendlease and the hotel over the water, I've made clear my view that I don't believe the original tender should have included part of the harbour, and I want to see that hotel move back onto land. Then the negotiations we're trying to have with Lendlease. Secondly, in relation to Mr Packer's proposal, clearly what I'd like is not only a world-class hotel to be built in Sydney, we are without one, but secondly, if possible, to grow our tourism through that high-dollar gaming tourism that is now part and parcel of worldwide tourism trends.
Threshold question, will you alienate Barangaroo Central, where the public lands are, the playing fields and the open space?
Well, I think there's confusion, Quentin, about Barangaroo Central. For instance, under the existing plan there is both open space but also 60,000 square metres of commercial development.
Up to 8 stories.
But the point is that if you listen to people like the Lord Mayor, you think the whole of Barangaroo Central was going to be a new domain. That was never in the original plan. So, Quentin, I made clear on the day in which, 3 days after Mr Packer put his proposal out there, so he put his proposal out there on a Friday. On Monday, having been contacted by the media on Sunday, I said, look, I think this project would be good for Sydney and for New South Wales. A world-class hotel will never be sneezed at, nor a $750 million investment by any New South Wales Premier. But secondly, I made clear that there are a number of regulatory hurdles that have to go through, not only in relation to planning approval processes, but also, of course, in relation to any gaming development, because we have in this state a 20-year-old piece of legislation that restricts us to one casino, and that casino has an exclusivity arrangement that runs out in November 2019.
Barangaroo Central, or the proposed site of Mr Packer's casino, goes north of what's called the Highgate line, which is a line going right along Circular Quay out to the Highgate apartment block on the west. Never before, according to the planners, has there been any consideration of a high-rise structure beyond the Highgate line, because it impacts not only on the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House, two iconic pieces of sculptural architecture globally known in Sydney, but also on the heritage value of Millers Point and Dawes Point.
And Quentin, as I said, I made clear there's a number of regulatory and other hurdles to go through. One of those, of course, is the existing planning process for Barangaroo, which involves the Barangaroo Development Authority. We're not the former government. We're not the former government that rides roughshod over local councils and existing planning processes, and I see no reason nor any request to do so.
So what you're indicating that it is on the table, it is negotiable?
No, what I'm indicating is that we have a proponent who's saying he'd like to bring a world-class hotel to Sydney. He's nominated Barangaroo South.
Barangaroo Central.
Sorry, Barangaroo Central.
Yeah.
What I'm saying to you, Quentin, is that there's planning processes, regulatory processes before it even gets to government. But am I going to turn my back on a $750 million or $1 billion development?
I can well understand. It's a very compelling argument about the high roller market. It's very enticing. But the question for you is politically, because Clover Moore is facing re-election and you're trying to get rid of her, you and the Daily Telegraph, for all the reasons about her undue influence over the city of Sydney, haven't you handed her a big reason for her constituents to re-elect her?
Well, Clover's...
Because she'll say, I stand against Barry O'Farrell and the Packer Casino on Barangaroo Central.
Well, Clover stands against everything, Quentin. I think people across the whole of the state have now worked that out. So look, let her run her election campaign as she will. I continue to say to you what I said on the first day I made any comment about this proposal. It is exciting. It could add life to Barangaroo, but it needs to go through the proper processes, including the regulatory processes, which are independent, which have been set out before it gets anywhere near the state government.
Mr Premier, thanks very much.
A pleasure.